Okay, this is a little quick heads up. You are building an engine and you've had any machine work done, connecting rods basically, and they've reconditioned them and they've probably checked them for cracks and everything. After they're done with them, they should check them for a magnetic charge. Now, as you are the engine assembler, you should check them. It's a good idea too. This gauge here checks them, and basically you run them around and you check to make sure there's no polarity in these, or magnetic field, let's say. Um, and what that will tell you is if you have a field of magnetic charge in there, you should remove that. And if you don't have a way to remove it, you sometimes can run across it with a large magnet. And if you don't have a field gauge, sometimes if you take the thinnest feeler gauge that you've got, like a thousandths feeler gauge or a thousandths and a half, and you run it across the rod, it's going to pull it towards the rod, and that'll tell you if you have a field in there. Basically, you don't want that because if you run into any medical particles in the oil, and we like to think that there's nothing in the oil of that nature because it goes through the filter, but what it will do is any iron or anything that's magnetic is going to attract to the bearing, and you most certainly don't want that. It's going to cause the bearings get tore up, the engine to get tore up. And as the rings run up and down the walls, there is going to be some microscopic particles. It's just that's the way things go. It'd be nice if they didn't, but that's not the case. And being that the rod is attached to the piston and the oil is coming off the wall, there's a good chance that you could get some collection around the bearing, possibly through the oil system too. Hopefully not, but it can happen. And you want to make sure that at least when you're putting your new parts in the engine, they don't have a magnetic charge on them. And like I said, if you've got a real thin feeler gauge, it'll pull. Or if you don't have a magnetic gauge to check for a charge, that would be the other option you'd have. And then, to remove the magnetic field from the rods, there's a couple ways of doing it. But, take them back to the machine shop. They should be able to pull the charge out of them. With equipment I have, I'm able to do that. And when I do the rods, I also make sure after I check them with a particle checker, which uses suspended fluid, iron particles in a suspended fluid, I make sure there's no charge in the rod. You can actually cause charge in the rod of a magnetic field, but just simply rebuilding the rod. So before and after, it's a wise idea to check that.